who is Reputation?
Well, I guess first and foremost, me. I'm Reputation's managing director for the EMEA region. I think our relationship pretty much started out when I walked through the door, which was, as you said, it was about 8 years ago. The organization is a US Silicon Valley based business. They're actually the first company GFK that I attended 8 years or so ago. Consisted of 12 people total in a kitchen.
How many people, how many assignments do you think Skyland's actually worked on to help you? Have a guess, because I had to look at the stats the other day.
Greatest asset in any business is the people that they have in there, but it can also be the greatest downfall as well if you get it wrong. I think sometimes you get further faster if you run at making your mistakes quicker.
Welcome everyone to the Digitech Leaders series. As you know, we like to shine a light on successful leaders in our space. I'm super happy to have somebody that I've worked with for, say, the past 8 years. He's been hard to track down because he's always so busy. But thanks ever so much, Anthony, for coming on the show. How are you doing?
You're very welcome. I'm good, thank you. I'm good.
Good stuff. So for the benefit of our audience, can you give us a bit of an overview of, who you are, but more importantly, who is Reputation?
Yep, absolutely, no problem. Well, I guess first and foremost, me. I'm Reputation's managing director for the EMEA region. I think our relationship pretty much started out when I walked through the door, which was, as you said, it was about 8 years ago. The organization is a US Silicon Valley based business. Actually started way before my tenure. It started back in 2006, but very different business then. It was a consumer focused organization where we helped individuals take control of their reputation online. That was the original business founded by Michael Furtick. Sometime after that, the business transitioned into an enterprise software platform. I'm doing pretty much the same, but for large global organizations. Today, we've grown to a scale and size where we see ourselves as the market leader in the reputation experience management space. We offer a software platform to the marketplace that helps them manage everything from the, if you think of a customer journey, everything from acquiring a customer to managing the loyalty that the customer base has within a business. So think about, conversion rate, lead generation on the acquisition side. And then on the loyalty side, I guess in simple terms, it's all about retaining the client. And that's done on the back of providing a platform to businesses to help them manage feedback. And feedback, obviously, today comes in many different forms. It could be in a digital online form of a review or a social comment, and it could come in a first party form, which could be a survey, as an example, that a business decides to solicit feedback from one of their customers or prospects with a specific set of questions, and then our platform cleverly gives them a way to understand what will be big data in a large organization, and then more importantly take action on that data in an effective way so that they can change behaviors within their organization and ultimately improve the experience of the customers that they serve.
So when you joined the business, then let's take you back those 8 years. So for example, it was only based in the UK. Tell everyone what it consisted of. How many people? How many customers? What did it look like? What did the Reputation look like for someone looking at that time?
It's funny because I joked about this in our just last month we did, or is it in the month that I'm in? We've just got through our we do a global field kickoff each year where we bring our people together, and to give you a sense of growth for up until this year, we've kind of always traveled to the US, but this year for the first time the region has grown to such a size that we managed to do it in my hometown of Liverpool, which I think people will probably guess with my accent coming through, which was wonderful. But it's funny, I say it's funny because I joked on stage that actually the first company GFK that I attended 8 years or so ago consisted of 12 people total in a kitchen, talking about what it was that we were going to do to take the product to market and grow the business. It was already at a growth phase anyway in the US in regards to, they had some marquee clients, and we had an unbelievable growth curve in regards to revenue. It was already showing signs of a successful business. But that was very much at the start of the business for within the region for which I'm responsible for. And like you said at that time, from a geography point of view, the focus was just the UK. It was about getting that business off the ground.
And you was an IC at that time, weren't you? You was an individual contributor.
Well, isn't everyone in a business where you've got two people?
100%, but you're like the first person on the ground. You're doing everything: marketing, selling, lead generation.
That's it. It's funny because I've got friends who've got small businesses, and as you reflect on that in a small business in that environment, your role and responsibility, coming from the world that I came from, you're almost taking a step back by way of, I'm not entitled as such, but like kind of the role and the responsibilities coming from a big company, coming into a small company like that. It's a different type of environment, and you're almost, if you consider it as a small business that anyone would run on a day-to-day basis, to your point, you are the chief marketing officer, you're the CEO, you're the chief finance officer, you're doing all of those different things. I was, of course, fortunate that I'm part of a much bigger corporation that's in the US. You get that support network from an experience standpoint, from a decision-making process on different things where you're going to be bouncing things off. But to your point, it was me plus one in this region.
Right.
And the plus one was someone with a little bit more technical nous around the solution and what it would deliver for people, and so on and so forth.
So let's fast forward it now then, because this is why I can never track you down, because you're always so busy. So what does it look like now in terms of geography, headcount? Talk us through that.
Yeah. So, well, now, to put it into simple terms rather than getting into specific numbers, we're a fully formed business by way of departments. There isn't a department that doesn't exist in the global business that isn't here now in region. So you've got everything that you would expect from the front end of an organization, from sales development representatives, the marketing organization. You then think about the sales engine room of the business. You think about post-sales and the professional services organization that are helping to make sure our customers are implemented in the best possible way. And then the all-important ongoing customer success team that are there to ensure that our customers are constantly getting value from the solution.
Yeah.
And then all of the other surrounding support and functions, whether it be finance as an example, everything exists here. So I'd like to say gone are the days, to a certain extent, where I wear a hat that sits in many different departments.
Yeah.
Although as a managing director of a business, actually, your role is to make sure that each of those functions are operating in an optimal fashion. And that was always the goal, right? Was to take the business to that place and that point. And we still continue to iterate like any growing business and evolve. But it's drastically different today than what it was back then. That's
I can vouch for that. So how many people, how many assignments do you think Skyland's actually worked on to help you? Have a guess. Because I had to look at the stats the other day.
Do you know what? I couldn't even hazard a guess because we worked that so close over a period of time. But it's funny because, and they're probably annoyed with me for doing it, is that I'll constantly ask the question to the team. You're no Skyland, right? And the answer is always yes. That's kind of my barometer of connecting when people join the company, how long they've been here, and that question.
I checked it out. So it was 32 to date. So yeah,
wow.
Literally from you and one other to where it is today. And obviously that includes different countries, different regions. So it surprised me as well, actually. So why do you think it's been a good success, our partnership?
Well, I'd like to think most business leaders just realize this is standard, right? When you get to a certain level of experience, but put our partnership to one side for a second. I'm probably going to say something that's stood the test of time, is that everyone's, the greatest asset in any business is the people that they have in there, but it can 100%. Also be the greatest downfall as well if you get it wrong. And therefore, having come into this business with that notion in my mind, because I'd worked under great leaders previously, and I'd been in great organizations that built great cultures and had unbelievable talent within the organization. It was obvious to me day one that if I was ever going to continue to grow the business at the rate in which the organization needed me to, that it was going to take great people to come in. And whilst you're as busy as what you are within an organization,
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing, if you're just doing it yourself, is it can just get pushed down because you've got so many things to do. And although there's me saying that it's the most important thing, you've got a customer on the other end of the phone, or you've got a prospect you've got to be with, or you've got a finance issue or a marketing challenge that you need to overcome. You're unfortunately going to deal with that thing rather than making sure the next person that walks through the door is the best person you can bring into your business.
Yeah.
So I just think having that notion in your mind first and foremost, and then when you move on from that and you select someone like yourself, or you find a way to work with it, it then becomes really important to have that match with the person on the other side. And I think this is why our partnership has worked really, is that individual needs to take the time to understand your organization.
Yeah.
It needs to take the time to understand the culture that you're trying to build, what your goals are and how you believe you're going to get there, right? Because sometimes you find yourself in a situation through experience where there's just a mismatch with a candidate on their expectation of what they're getting into with the business. And if their expectation is wrong, and their want and desire is to operate and work in a different way, or they didn't understand that, if I go back 8 years, that this is a startup and not everything is fully formed right now.
Yeah.
Not everything has been overanalyzed and over-processed. And you're going to come each day, and every day is going to be colourful and different, and we're going to be faced with a new challenge. And we have to be individuals that is happy with that, and we can pick it up and find a solution to that problem. Then I'd say that's part of the reason why our partnership was successful, is that I think we took the time straight off the bat, and continue to do so to this day, that there's a consistent understanding of how this business has evolved and what's important to it, and therefore what's important to the candidates that you're going to speak to.
Yeah.
So they've got a full consideration to the organization, because it's both sides, right? It's like, it's
100%.
not just... It's for them to make a decision on you as a business, as well as to whether they're going to be happy, they fit the culture, and that's what they want, And
it's evolving as well. Ultimately, I'm asking questions about the business every time that we talk, because it's changed.
Yep.
It's consistently growing. So ultimately, I need to, or anyone that's working with a search partner, they got to make sure that person is keeping up to where they're growing, where they're, what their milestones are, etc. What kind of, for anyone out there that's thinking about potentially partnering, or thinking about maybe using Skyline, why would you recommend that perhaps they should have a discussion with us?
Well, I think I'm going to connect back to what I've just said. I think first and foremost, you have to take stock of your situation and your ability to be able to bring in the best talent to your business, and what outcome you're going to get from that.
Yeah.
Everyone's situation's different. For me, it was absolutely essential.
Yeah.
The business categorically would not have got to where it has got to today without having access to the right candidates at the right time, who understood the business and can come in. And my situation was so much so that I couldn't get to that.
Yeah.
And you kind of know, because obviously you'll go through busy periods, I'll go through busy periods, you get internal referrals. The numbers that you've just mentioned before is obviously not the size of the business today. People move around, it's much bigger than that. But at the same time, you get candidates from you, most of which, if not all, are still with me today, by the way, which is testament to how successful our relationship has been, which I think is the biggest credit that I can give to the work that we've done together.
Yeah.
But aside from that, as I've looked at the alternative ways that candidates have come to the fore and potentially took up roles and come into the business, you can see a difference, because sometimes that diligence is not being done there. And you'll continue to learn from that. So I would say, before you go down, because you'll know this because you do it on a daily basis, like the amount of energy and effort that's required to get it right
That's why our industry exists, right?
Exactly. So I'm preaching to the person that I shouldn't really be doing it to. But
But in terms of based on what you've just said about that kind of candidates coming through the business, whether they've come through a referral or through some other method, I think candidate experience, I mean, you deal with customer experience, we're dealing with candidate experience, is so important. From the minute I'm talking to them, I have to put myself in your shoes, right? Because it has to be a seamless process from one to the other. And I think that understanding your client well helps that happen, and the results, as you just mentioned, are clear. Enough about Skyland. Talk us through though, Anthony, over 8 years, what would you say is perhaps the biggest learning point, or perhaps let me rephrase that. If you was to do this job all over again, what changes, what would you do differently this time? It's a tough one, but it's my audience would be keen to find out.
Oh, what would I do different? A really good question. I think there's no one thing that I don't, there's lots of things actually that everyone, unless you're the type of person that thinks they do everything perfect, right? There's always going to be a collection of things which is why I'm pausing, because I don't.
Yeah.
If anyone says he does, then they're lying. We make lots of mistakes in business, and in small businesses. I think sometimes you get further faster if you run at making your mistakes quicker.
Fail fast.
Yeah, and make adjustments. And maybe it'll just sound obvious to everyone because it's probably been said before, or maybe it'll sound a little bit silly putting it across in the way in which I do. But I think in doing that, and like sometimes you know that something's not quite right.
Yeah.
And honestly, like if I connect it back to to your world, we know that with employees at times.
Gut feeling, intuition, that type of
But
thing.
both sides know it as well.
Yeah.
And I think if I consider, if you're just asking me for one thing, and this is not everything in business, there might be some that are big and some that are smaller. But if I connect it back to our conversation, I'd say it's probably that, in that, have them conversations quicker with people, because a lot of the time they're probably feeling the same way that the businesses feel. And this is not necessarily people that just report to me direct, right? They could report to anyone that within my business, but I see it either from afar or I'm involved in the situation myself. I just think we've got to consistently find a way to have them, open and honest, balance and check conversations with human beings. You mentioned we're in customer experience, but actually in employee experience as well. Our software is used for businesses to keep a pulse on, how is their biggest asset feeling about how they're doing within the role. And I'd probably just connect it back to that and just say at certain times I can picture back to say, if we just had that conversation sooner, it might not be that we'd parted ways, but we might have made an operational change within the business that had been more suitable to the individual, because there might have been a slight mismatch in their expectation of what they were coming into, what they were going to be responsible for, or there might have been a slight mismatch in our expectation of the skill set of that human being that was coming into our organization. And with an open and honest conversation, a slight adjustment, I think the outcome at times would have been much better.
Absolutely. So for our benefit of our audience, a lot of them are like scaling SaaS companies, scaling digitech companies, with the sales force being absolutely crucial. In your experience, what have you looked for in account executives? What advice would you give to other scaling businesses about finding those ideal or really strong top performers?
Did you say, what is the question about finding them, or what
No,
is the
what do you look for? So let's say they presented, they're in front of you. How do you know? What do you look for? What's your key criteria to say, right, that person I believe is going to be a top performer for our business and our team?
Yeah, I think that in sales, well, take a step back as a starting point, right? You and I have had this conversation before. If we're partnering, by the time someone gets through you as a trusted advisor to me and my business,
Yeah.
there's a collection of boxes that are being checked, right? Because we've spent hours going through, okay,
What it looks like.
what does good look like on paper, i.e., experience, where they've been, match with our business, and so on and so forth. So I think by the time you're at the point of interview with myself, and there might have been a couple of stages before, I'm really looking to underpin kind of the cultural fit type stuff, and that's not just, do we do a social once a quarter, and like, who likes what within the business, have we got a good mix of people, and so on and so forth. That's,
Yeah.
if you think about it in business terms, it's potentially, what methodology is being used within the organization, and does that person feel like they can be at their best working within that situation and that
Yeah.
frame? Because in most circumstances, like, that's a global movement for an organization, because you're trying to find a common global sales language that makes the business hum, makes it operate better, so that we get consistency as you scale and you get more people within the organization,
Yeah.
through methodology that's common and being shared by people. So I think, being open with them about the way in which the organization operates, and them feeling good about that, either they've done it before or they can learn from it, I think is key.
Yeah.
Everyone's their own best self in an interview, right? So no one's going to tell you that they don't work hard. No one's going to tell you that they're not going to be on time. Like, so it's just, I think it's the subtleties, which is
Yeah.
not easy. Actually, it's a fine art. I'm by
Yeah.
no means, um, yeah, I wouldn't grade myself in the upper echelons of interviewing, but I've been doing it long enough to know that it's not easy, and you've got to continue to get better at it to find the right person for your business.
Absolutely. Brilliant. I tell you, Anthony, I'm not going to keep you anymore because I know you've got to shoot to your next meeting, but I just wanted to thank you ever so much for coming on the show. And I'll obviously look forward to trying to get you back on the next show in another 18 months' time, see how well you've done. But thanks ever so much, and appreciate everything you've done.
That's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Thanks.